In their brilliant book, Hilary Kremen and Terence Bevington look at the necessity for peace in schools. And they say that if students are treated as criminals through the everyday fabric of school life, it makes it more likely that they will respond in kind. The very technology that is supposed to diminish violence and deviance in schools serves to amplify it. And I think violence is quite a strong term, especially when you are looking at schools, which are seen as places of support for many. But I think it's warranted. I'm not going to go through this particular detail of breaking down into the direct and the indirect violence. You can pause the video and watch this. But there is direct violence, and the indirect violence is structural and cultural. And for students, pupils, and staff, maybe experiencing these without being able to articulate them, or with those people around them being unaware that they are experiencing this kind of violence. And I hope in this short presentation, I hope it will assist those of you who may be, as teachers, on the receiving end of violent behaviour from others, have a language to be able to challenge that, and also obviously to support the students within your schools. So my background is in the arts, and particularly drawing from more sort of ancient traditions of rhetoric. And the three areas of rhetoric which is normally explored is pathos, ethos, and logos. I'm not going to talk about these three. We're going to have a look at Ginny Bootman's 10 minutes. She's talking about this. What I want to introduce is the idea of mythos. Mythos, or storytelling, and which is a role of the arts and creativity that links the more rational and structured part of our learning experience with the what's known as transrational, or the creative and the spiritual. And a simple methodology for this is known as the butterfly model. At its simplest, it's one circle representing self and the other circle representing everybody else. And what we're looking for is that Venn diagram. How do we, as an individuals, fit in with a particular task or activity with everybody else? And that can be a lesson, it can be in a staff room, it can be working with a group, but the same core requirements are necessary. Now, when we're exploring change and peace building, we have to provide the systems which are appropriate to the needs of the individual. And they can be simple systems, all the way up to complex adaptive systems. I think one of the challenges within education is, as educators, we are having to deal with complex adaptive systems. I don't think there's anything more complex than trying to teach a year 5 group on a Wednesday afternoon when it's raining and there's a dog in the playground. How do you manage the needs of all those individuals? And at its simplest, and I'm not going to go through all of the systems approaches within this short, what's now sort of 8 minutes, but the simplest system, which when you apply this, it's like pulling at a strand of a spider's web. You pull everything. At its simplest, it's understanding what you can see, the knowing, what have we got to do, with the being, which is the development of the more complex human being, and the outcomes. And we do that by doing. But to do, we have to understand where we are, who we're with, and what we're doing. So at its simplest, the simplest tool that I've used for years, and there are hundreds and thousands of these learning lines in schools around the UK and globally. Do a search on Google for the learning line, or contact me directly and I'll send you some resources. But this is early years group, and in the class on their first week they come in and they make a learning line, and you see here that the teachers incorporated the stop, ready and go colours there, and the children make it their own, and then they can mark where they are in terms of their progress in the lesson, but also how they feel. And I think this is central to peace building, that we don't just focus on the rational or the structured, we focus on the emotional and the spiritual. And one way of joining us together in terms of the doing is using story. Now, I've been working in education and also in industry, using storytelling of the storytelling narrative for about 40 years. I know that's hard to believe, but it's true. But the stages that drawing from Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey, that I've condensed into these basic stages of the call to adventure. Well, okay, what are we doing here today? What is it that we're going to work on? It can be a lesson, it can be a strategic development plan. And then we need the different competencies of accepting the call. Okay, where am I in this? Where's the me in this? So we move from the we to the me. What am I? What is my role? What is my responsibility? What is my reward? And then if we can understand that, we go back to the we. We say, okay, let's come up with a plan. Let's create the plan. But if you go straight from, oh, this is all what we've got to do, and this is our plan, and you haven't taken into consideration whether or not the individual is engaged, they are passionate about it, they see a relevance to themselves, they see a role that is clearly defined, and the responsibilities and the consequences for not acting upon those responsibilities, and the rewards, you'll find it very challenging. And a lot of schools find themselves in conflict because they move from the we drives without taking into consideration the me drives. And the challenge is also in a leadership team. You may have individuals within your leadership team, even your school, who are more focused on the me drives than the we. I am the boss, just bloody well do as I say. And when we see that this process of the hero's journey moves us and shifts us from being aware of our needs and then the needs of others, and then a more complicated process of what are our needs, which is the plan, and then the path of trials, which is, okay, what have I got to do? What is my challenge? How am I learning? How am I applying? How am I developing my independence? And then we move back to a we state, which is what's known as returning with the elixir. We said, okay, what is the impact here? What have we got? How is it impacting on myself, others, and my community? And then we in terms of our reflection and review, we introduce the colours are significant, but I'm not going to explain them in this limited few minutes left of my presentation. But the yellow is actually checking in and looking at how things worked, how they worked at each stage, what worked for me, what worked for you. So this balance between the self and others, using the stages of the hero's journey, will create a simple framework for checking in. And in each one of those stages, it will enable us to get on with the doing. Now, if you take any one of those stages out, you will find that it won't work. It will be out of balance. And one of the reasons why storytelling, even if it's a way in, to invite people in, say, have a look at this, this clip from Harry Potter, or have a look at The Matrix. It gives children and adults from whatever background, from whatever culture, from whatever age, and for whatever key stage, a framework. And I think it's vital to have frameworks that work for everyone, and not just those people who like planning, or those people who are particularly creative, or those people that like reflective process. It means that we get to check in with each of these stages all the way through the learning process. And once we've gone through, we just go through it again, but at a more complex level. So I'll leave you with this quote from the Buddha. And the Buddha said, if you know, but you do not do, you do not know. And the challenge for us in terms of peace building within schools is if we know that there is violence taking place, if we know that we can see that there is someone not engaged or being sidelined, and they can be a staff member or a student, but we do nothing about it. Even when we know the theory, then we do not know. And at this stage of transition and this stage of change within our organisations and within our schools, which has got so much potential, it's going to be easy for us to fall into challenge and conflict, when what we could do is look at this as an opportunity not only just to raise attainment and raise engagement, but bring a little bit more peace into the world.